Welcome in everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined this week to recap preseason. We're done watching matches. I get to chat it up with Justin Horniker. Justin, we're live. How's it going?
It's going good. I am excited to get into things. I'm excited to actually have some footage to go over. And that's the big thing to me.
It is. I mean, this is the first episode where we're going to actually be able to talk about what we've seen. So that's probably the most exciting thing to me. But it's not the only thing. We don't have a ton of different information to jump back and forth between. Not a ton of news, but I feel the couple topics that we do have are going to be meaty.
Yeah.
The kit, the Lucas McNaughton, the preseason matches, and then because this is kind of our last preseason episode of Flyover Footy, we're going to talk about all of our takeaways to that. So very excited to have you here with me.
Yes, ready to be here.
And hopefully, crossing my fingers here that we don't have any connection issues. We've been on a hot streak here on Flyover for a while without any tech issues, and I feel I'm pushing the envelope. If you can't tell, I don't have my usual scarf and office behind me. So stick with us. If things start to freeze, drop us a note in the chat for the live stream. And, if you're watching this later, hopefully it's a smooth sailing ride from here.
Yeah, Matt, last time I was on was the first time I think me and you have not had any sort of technical issues. So I think it's going in the right direction.
Knocking on wood over here. Okay, let's get going with the pod recording, and we'll see how long it goes. This might be a 45-minute show. This might be an hour and 45. We'll see. I do have some water around here. I gotta make sure I keep that with me.
It's good to say hi.
Lunchtime flyover.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to hang on. Welcome everyone to Flyover Footy on the Big 550 KTRS. My name is Matt Baker, joined this week by my friend in soccer, Justin Horniker. Justin, welcome to the show again.
Hello everyone. Happy to be back. Glad to talk some soccer, and now that we have actual soccer to talk about.
Actual soccer, not really actual soccer that counts yet, but
pretend soccer, pretend real soccer, whichever.
The best idea and the best indication of what we're going to be able to see in the regular season. So, lot to dive into. We're going to get some logistics out of the way to start this one. And then we've got some obvious kit discussion to get into. A couple bits of news, but mostly this one's going to be kit talk, preseason recap, and a look ahead to next week, because this is the final Flyover Footy of preseason. Next week, we turn the page fully, and that's a perfect segue into a reminder that next Thursday, February 19th at 7 p.m., we will be live at Blue Jay Brewing for our second annual live podcast to kick off the regular season. We will have giveaways, we'll have stickers, we'll have maybe some trivia, definitely Q&As. So if you come thirsty and come ready to bring questions, because we're going to prepare everybody and ourselves for the regular season. I'm incredibly excited to dive into what this team is going to look like against Charlotte on the 21st. And I'm excited to do it with a lot of our loyal listeners and viewers. You guys showed up and showed out last year, and I'm excited that Blue Jay was gracious enough to host us again this year. That's going to be awesome. Similarly, I'm also incredibly excited to welcome to Blue Jay Brewing, hopefully, members of our charitable partner of the year, Catherine Cares. This one's going to be very exciting to me because Catherine Cares has a lot of new things we're going to talk about next year. I want to give a quick update on some of the things they've been working on as they're our charitable partner. And we will be having prop bets next week where we detail the things, how we're going to be supporting them besides our jersey proceeds. But Catherine Cares, if you're not familiar with them, they provide kind of life-altering services and to children and families that are confronted with the most awful situations in life. Their signature service are Heartbeat Bears, where they provide stuffed animals that contain legitimate heartbeat sounds of children and newborns that are dealing with end-of-life care, unfortunately. They've got a new program called the Companion Crew that we'll be able to talk about and show a little more next week. But really quick, each companion from Catherine Cares comes with their own special message for the recipient, encouraging and hopeful words contained. They have a vision for the service to offer more children and families connected and comforting when faced with an unexpected medical diagnosis. They've consulted child life teams from Cardinal Glennon and St. Louis Children's Hospital, developing this new service, the Companion Crew. They've got a host of new bears. We'll put them out on social media on some details for that. But their hope is that this Companion Crew helps expand their impact to a larger audience, like babies in the NICU, kids in the PICU, pediatric oncology patients, continuing to provide heartbeat bears to families facing life-threatening or prenatal newborn diagnoses as well. So their mission is shifting to uplifting families of children facing an unexpected medical diagnosis now that they're able to offer this heartbeat bear service and Companion Crew. And we on Flyover are so excited to be able to support them in any way that we can. It's a fantastic service that they're continuing to provide and expanding upon. So we look forward to having some interesting, fun, and innovative ways to be able to support them that we can track throughout the regular season. I've already been, Justin suggested that a monetary donation per Chris Durkin Skyball into the Ultra Club be one of the prop bets. And I told my friends when they suggested this, I'm not trying to mortgage my house on supporting here. I want this tenable, but at the same time exciting. So maybe the Durkin Skyballs are going to be off the menu based on what we've seen the past few years.
Something a little more manageable. Yeah,
exactly. The biggest news of the week, besides preseason matches, is, and this is now a typical, I would say, yearly tradition in its controversial nature, but St. Louis City unveiled a new kit. The new kit that was unveiled is the Tina Turner kit. Justin, we have a lot of details that have been provided from the club and from all kinds of different articles on the kit. The Tina Turner kit is a nod to the gold fringe dress and gold records. That's what the look of the kit is. The Tina kit is obviously for sale now. They have Tina Turner pop-up shops at City Foundry. It's available online. It's available at City Pavilion, City Goods. By now, you are no doubt familiar with the Tina Turner kit. We are showing some images of what it looks like on our live stream. The club has put out all kinds of details. We've put out details on Flyover and my social media on what it looks like. Let's just get into some of the thoughts, because I'll tee us up, Justin, on this conversation by some of the reactions that I've seen online. Anywhere from loving the uniqueness of it, wishing that we use the full scope of our colors first, meaning energy yellow, river blue, arch steel or arch gray. People don't understand the Tina Turner tie. That was somewhat prevalent, or at least vocal in a minority. Some didn't like the Tina Turner look or the link. They think we should have gone with other artists. They're not a fan of the actual look with the LAFC-ish colors, the gold and black. They don't think it will be widely bought, too niche. A lot of people wondering why Tina now in our 4th year of existence. And a lot of people noticing in the images that were released here recently that the shorts appear to be slightly different than the front of the kit itself. We're going to touch on all of that, but what are your initial thoughts when seeing this kit?
Yeah, if I could take you through my roller coaster of emotions. I think Please. Like everyone, I'm coming into it, seeing the like leaked images and being like, oh man, this does not look great. But seeing it in person, I think seeing it on the players and seeing it in person, you kind of appreciate some of the details that are in it that look a little bit better than they do in that flat like JPEG image that gets leaked out. So like I think
the bagel shop.
Yeah, I think the one on Matt Seebeck's phone. I wound up liking it. Like I do really like this kit, and I think as me, I'm someone that appreciates like weird kits, and when teams try to go for stuff, like to give you some reference on some of the kits I enjoy, like my favorite kit of all time is the 92 Norwich kit. So like I enjoy busy kits and things that are trying to go for something. Like I understand the like complaints or the thoughts of it not being necessarily city colors, but I also think with the secondary kit, like you get to be a little bit weird with things. So I think I landed on that. I generally like the kit. And I like all the little details about it too, like the Tina silhouette on the like authentication patch. I think is really nice touch, and like the feel of the jersey, like the secondary logo, the secondary crest, like is kind of iridescent also. So I like all those little details.
The link, it ties directly to Eternal, a tribute to Tina Turner. It's a February 15th show at the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. Brittany Howard of Alabama Shakes, Kennedy Holmes, local St. Louis singer, will be there. Tickets on sale now if you're listening to this before February 15th, but that is a direct tie. St. Louis City is a sponsor of this. They're a partner with the Symphony Orchestra. So there's that. That's the timeliness factor of this. That plays a part in this. A couple of the other things that were noteworthy to me, Justin, were comments from Matt Seebeck. Matt Seebeck and Carolyn Kindle were available at the reveal that you were at this week, and they had some comments. So interested on what your take on some of these were. Seebeck noting that it was a unique take on Energy Yellow. I thought it was interesting that he called that out in addition to the obvious gold tie to Tina Turner. Splashy, flashy way to tie into the World Cup year. The obvious color tie and the drapery almost of facade on the front of the kit being a nod to the types of dresses that she wore. To me, the biggest thing to remember about all of this is how it all ties into everything non-sporting related. Kits are obviously worn on the field, and that's the primary way in which they're touted, and we will see them over the next couple of years on the players. But Seebeck had noted in some interviews that the concept and design, I even think I saw Pete Wood make a note of this on social media, one of the two, that this concept has been in the works since 2023. The 18th month, Adidas has an 18-month runway of sorts, give or take, to have these kits developed, manufactured, and the idea created and implemented. And so this has been a long time coming, but so have the other kits before this. There's already planning for after this. This isn't, to me, a case of us pivoting away from our identity. To your point, this is using the secondary kit as an opportunity to do something unique that I also feel fans had called for and wanted to see a little bit more of in the past couple of years. I'm not saying that there's speaking out of both sides of their mouth on wanting an iconic look related to the city colors, but also wanting splashy, flashy, and a unique look. But having come out with the initial arch gray Adidas kit for the road, the city kit itself, the Confluence kit, which was white, the Forever City red, which was obviously all city red with some maroon accents. There are the idea of City diving into their primary color of city red has been accomplished. We've had basically 3 jerseys out of our 4 that we've had before this that dove into city red, the Confluence and the 2 home kits. This is very notable in how it's a departure from our colors. But at the same time, the concept of honoring a singer or a musical artist is not anything City is breaking ground with. You had Seattle with Jimi Hendrix. You had this year San Jose with Grateful Dead, and Nashville with Johnny Cash. So there have been very recent history where artists have been honored with local ties, and you can make an argument of how local is local enough to honor them with a kit of sorts. But I think I saw it best when people were complaining that Tina Turner's ties to St. Louis either aren't well known or it's not worth doing a kit for that type of an artist. She's the queen of rock and roll, so she has a different bar set when you're talking about taking ownership of her roots and where she comes from. But also, when you're meeting somebody else from St. Louis, Justin, what's the one question that people ask you when they find out that you're from St. Louis?
Oh, what high school did you go to, Matt?
What high school did you go to? Sumner High School is the answer here. It's not where were you born? It's not where did you go to elementary school? What city did you grow up in? It's where did you go to high school? And Tina is able to answer that, or her family is able to answer that for her, of where she went to high school in St. Louis. So
yeah, no, I was gonna say I've done, like, with St. Louis Mag, we've done a couple stories, and like I did a story on this piece, just going through Tina Turner's just like connection to St. Louis and everything the club is trying to do. But like I've done a couple pieces over the past couple of years where I'm like looking into some like graduates from Sumner, and like I was actually surprised by the amount of people that like graduated from that school. Like Arthur Ashe graduated from Sumner. I learned that the other day. Yeah, it's a very like historic part of our city's history that I think is a blind spot to a lot of people that is worth diving into a little bit. But to go in on the Tina Turner history a little bit, like in that article I've been doing a lot of research on Tina Turner and Ike and Tina Turner over the past month or so. And like, so Tina Turner graduates from Sumner. During that time, she's going to clubs around the city, trying to get her foot in the door. That's where she meets Ike Turner. Like, just by happenstance, she is brought in to be a backup singer for the Kings of Rhythm, which was Ike Turner's band at the time. There's a recording session where she's supposed to be like a backing vocalist for the lead vocalist, doesn't show up. Someone recommends that she step in as the lead vocal, and then like from there it becomes Ike and Tina Review, and like the rest is history. I learned another little interesting fact, that when Ike and Tina were touring around, I think it was Club Parliament, which used to be in North City, that Jimi Hendrix was one of their like rhythm guitarists for a short period of time. And I believe, well, the story that Ike Turner tells, if you want to believe it or not, is that after a set that they did at Parliament Club, that they kicked him out because he was like kind of upstaging everyone, experimenting with like early distortion pedals, which I found was very interesting. But little piece of St. Louis music history for you there.
Honestly, I'm super excited that you were able to bring that here, because there's a question in the chat that I think should be addressed, and it's from perfect name here, Chris Klein 7240. If this is an 18 to 24 month process, it seems like a choice that should be more easily explained. And I think part of the problem here is the lack of understanding of Tina Turner's ties to St. Louis. Part of it and you could maybe even go further than that. And I'm not saying, if you didn't know Tina Turner was that lived in St. Louis, went to high school in St. Louis, was discovered in St. Louis, I'm not saying that there's a problem with that. But the idea that you don't know is, I think it's benefited from this kind of thing, shining a light on a massive part of history that St. Louisans should be proud of. You can say, oh, we've got these other artists. I saw people saying, why didn't we do Nelly? Why don't we do this person, that person? We have new kits every year, guys. A new kit is going to come out every year. There will be opportunities to showcase, to shine a light, to highlight and magnify and amplify all kinds of messages, people, causes. If there's one thing that you can't deny about this club, is that they've tried to raise up underutilized, underseen areas of St. Louis, our culture, music, arts, all of these things. The phrase "it's more than soccer" is proven time and time again. This is a side conversation to the product on the field, right? The side conversation to the quality of play that we have. This is the mission of what Carolyn Kindle wanted to do on the non-sporting side and continues to do. So the idea that our first foray into spotlighting a person with our secondary kit being Tina Turner, I think there are layers to it that you have to appreciate beyond just the fact that the Queen of Rock and Roll went to high school in St. Louis and was discovered in St. Louis and has the kind of stories that Justin was telling. That's the kind of thing that I kind of really enjoy about this. But the other thing I think to me is, if you like it, don't feel bad about it. If you don't like it, don't feel bad about it. It's a kit. I don't think you need to convince other people of your way of thinking of one way or the other on this kit. People are going to enjoy it. They're going to enjoy it. If people aren't going to enjoy it, they're not going to enjoy it. I've seen national media, ESPN clearly did not enjoy it. I've seen The Guardian clearly did enjoy it and appreciate it. There are lists that are out there all over the place, and this kit is polarizing. It's you either love it or you don't, as far as the look goes.
Gets the people going.
It spurs conversation at the very least. But I'm also showing on the live stream some of like the gold shimmer, the city red trim, the Tina icons that are on the kit. It's definitely a unique way that we've never experienced in St. Louis with a kit of how to honor a person like this. There have been comments of this kit isn't doing her justice, and I'd be curious what you think doing justice to a person would be in this way, where San Jose this year has a tie-dye type kit, and that's for the Grateful Dead. Like, is that a simplistic way to do it? Is it a boring way to do it? Is it spot on? Is it appropriate? Like, there are different ways to judge homages and honoring in this kind of way. At the end of the day, it's an article of clothing, so you do what you can to fit in as many motifs and as many callbacks to that person to honor them and to make you think of that person when you see this kind of a kit.
Yeah, and I think I can lend some color to like the timeline of it a bit. So Tina Turner passed away in 2023 when I was talking with Seebeck and the club last week, just in anticipation for the story I was working on. Like, he said that in year 4, they always wanted to do a collab kit of some kind. Tina Turner passes away. her husband, manager Erwin Bach, on their second stage of life, wanted to kind of partner with something in St. Louis because he says that Turner always felt like St. Louis was her like spiritual home. So that kind of like I think helps illuminate some of the timeline of it. And then yeah, like I said, it just takes a while to design these things and put out these things, but that's at least like the story of the timeline of it.
Well, I think that's incredibly important. So thank you for bringing that. Benefits to you joining just a few days after you were able to attend.
Symmetry there.
Exactly. And I think that's important, knowing that timeline of 2023 when they had this idea after she passed, wanting to honor, and knowing that they had this runway that aligned with the desire in year 4 to have this kind of kit. The other thing in the chat is Chris mentions, it feels like we're trying to re-engineer the story to fit the kit. I think part of this is this story is now coming out of nowhere, quote unquote, where there wasn't a buildup to it necessarily. Yes, there was a buildup to the partnership of St. Louis with Eternal and the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra and it being Tina Turner. The leak was out there. The infamous now photo that somebody saw Matt Seebeck holding his phone at the bagel shop in Webster Groves.
Matt Seebeck needs some better OPSEC, you know? He's just giving away all the kit details at the bagel shop.
And St. Louis, unfortunately, falls victim to the replica kit somehow being the one that's leaked. So you don't have the trim, you don't have the actual, like what the gold, what a good image of what it looks like. And that's what everybody judges it and creates their first impressions on. We've talked about that before. But what I would have liked to see, you know, because you can't control certain aspects of this lead up. What I would have liked to see is the club lean into acknowledging that the leak occurred. They don't have to reveal the kit, but maybe dropping a few more breadcrumbs, amplifying the message of Tina Turner's importance in minute ways. You know, I'm obviously I don't have a business proposal on what they should have done, but the idea that you can drop little hints, you could reference certain things, you could raise visibility, be a little bit more on the nose, but just kind of tongue in cheek, right? Because now you do have this massive story and you do have all this history that is kind of just being slammed in at once, inundating everybody. And not that it feels heavy-handed necessarily, but with everybody coming into this with different levels of knowledge of Tina's experiences, her time spent, and her impact to St. Louis and St. Louis's impact on her, aligning all of those understandings and knowledge ahead of time may have kind of helped in the initial expectation and understanding of this kind of stuff. I think, and there's another comment in the chat that I want to amplify. Becker AC, remember when people were surprised to learn Energizer was based here? Turns out a lot of St. Louisans don't know all that much about St. Louis. And I think there's an unfortunate level of truth to this, but there's a lot of history about St. Louis that exists all across different spectrums and platforms. This is an opportunity, just to put a bow on it from my end, this is an opportunity to amplify a huge portion of it that all St. Louisans, in my opinion, should be proud of. Any final comments on the kit before we move on to the players?
My final comment would be that with this collection, there is a gold sweatsuit that they're also selling that I just like need expeditiously. But yes, that's my final comment.
Edu looks like a mob boss in that gold sweatsuit. It is, nice. I mean, it's tremendous. And there's other clothes. There's a scarf with Tina's face on it. There's shirts, tracksuits, a lot of merch available for this, and they all do look cool. They do look good on the players. Luke Jacob 99 said in our chat, they do look good on the players, and I think that will be something that we get to experience here in the not too distant future. It'll be worn at Energizer Park here and there, but it is primarily our away kit, and it will be our away kit for at least the next 2 seasons. And I don't think that they really know what they're going to be doing after the sprint season, if we get new away kit then, or if we make this one run out the clock.
My understanding is like it's 2 seasons, not necessarily 2 years. So like the sprint season, at least my understanding counts. Is now the sprint season counts. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's good to know. So this may be a 1.5 year kit, if that brings you any kind of solace, depending on how you're feeling about this.
My last takeaway is when I was asking around what the players' reaction was. Apparently, Brendan McSorley is just like a huge Tina Turner fan, so that's good to know for future reference.
Love it. Perfect. I'd be excited. And this was also picked up on Billboard, so it's broken through the zeitgeist in essence of St. Louis honoring Tina this way and getting through to non-sports, raising the visibility of city for non-sports. But for what we care about, and in addition to this kind of stuff, we care about things that are happening on the field, on top of the kit. And on the field this week, St. Louis had a player signing. Lucas McNaughton, 30-year-old center back, joined St. Louis through the June 30th, 2027 sprint season with a club option for 27-28. McNaughton is a wealth of experience, or has a wealth of experience for Major League Soccer. He has been a trialist in camp, so he's been competing for City already, played against New York, Tampa Bay, DC in those closed-door matches, and then we got to see him this past Wednesday against LA Galaxy. He has played. He's a Canadian. He's a multi-international. He has multiple passports. He's played for Toronto, for Nashville, for DC. There's a lot of history and experience in Major League Soccer that Lucas brings. What are your thoughts as we have signed our first trialist of the year, and I believe second ever trialist that we've signed to the club?
Yeah, I think so. My thoughts are, I have two like competing thoughts in a way. Like, in a vacuum, Lucas McNaughton as like a player, as a kind of reclamation project, like if he is like like we talked about last time I was on, Matt, like his numbers in DC were actually like surprisingly good last year as he was like playing through injuries. So if he is the player that I think is trying to get back to like a good place of health, like seems to think that he's on the right foot going forward with his health, like that's a player that you can bring in relatively low cost, relatively like there's not a lot of risk there, and he has the potential to be like a starter quality center back in MLS. And then my other thought is like this kind of insurance, as we maybe saw some of during the preseason game on Wednesday, of like if you start getting down that depth chart, like Lucas McNaughton gets in there, has a little bit more of an ability to play on the ball. And like I noticed some moments on Wednesday where he like had some good interceptions and good step up moments. So like definitely good depth to have. Like obviously it's not the signing everyone's waiting for, but I think it's not a bad signing.
I would say it's a good signing with a significant upside, and I don't expect it to cost that much.
Yeah.
McNaughton is on the other side of some serious injuries, and if you're watching, this is a parental guidance warning about what I'm about to show.
Look away.
Lucas McNaughton has missed a significant amount of time due to injury. And when we talk about signing a center back who's 30 years old with an injury history, the PTSD from Joachim Nilsson immediately comes to mind. The significance to the time that he has missed, though, is a serious thigh injury that he sustained while in Nashville. So Lucas McNaughton had come to Nashville from Toronto FC in 2023 for CJ Sapong, a forward, and up to $200,000 in GAM. So a player plus $200K in GAM was traded for Lucas McNaughton, coming from Toronto to Nashville, where he had just been called up to the Canadian men's national team in 2022. So he plays in 23. Nashville picks up his option, and then he suffers this devastating thigh injury in April 2024. Massive muscle issue, had to have surgery, missed the rest of the 2024 season, was picked up in before 2025 by DC United, and then missed some significant time while with DC. The article or the stats from Transfermarkt were that he missed 27 games in the 24 season, and he missed 19 games in the 25 season due to the, I would say, continuous re-aggravation of that type of an injury, not unlike players like Thomas Olstrak has dealt with, or Seti Toysher, Chris Dirk, and those kinds of things.
Something St. Louis fans might be accustomed to, yes.
So that's the problem with this. The quality pre-injury is unquestioned. We've chatted with Nashville folks with 615 Soccer, and they've unanimously said that this was a starting caliber center back for us. This was a player that we wanted and was valuable to us. But unfortunately, since his injury in 24, we just haven't seen him. We just haven't seen him is the problem. It's not that he necessarily has lost quality. It's that we haven't had the opportunity. So when we put him in as a trialist and we saw him in St. Louis in training, my first thought is, if he's healthy, like what you said, if he's healthy, he will be good depth who can possibly push for a starting role in a 3-man center back group. We've got Falou Fall, we have Mbake Fall, we have Dante Pulvera now, Timo Baumgartel. So there's a level of quality that we have for our top center backs, and just below that, with Haziel Orozco, Kyle Hebert, and Josh Yaro as the other center backs, I don't see any reason that a healthy Lucas McNaughton can't push for legit playing time, not just as a 70, 80-minute sub, but he could push for a starting role if he's healthy. And that's also why I was a little bit concerned when I heard about this signing that was imminent. I was concerned because he didn't feature at all against Austin in that first preseason game. And so immediately thinking, here we go again. We're going to sign a player who's already missing time due to an injury. Seeing him start and play against the LA Galaxy was such a welcome surprise. I was not expecting that. I was happy to see it. And also, to your point, as a central center back, I thought he played well. He is a ball-winning center back. He's comfortable playing the ball out of the back, good at winning duels, tackling, and blocks. He's got a lot of the data from before his injury that I think will benefit us at a level that we have thus far. I mean, it's a higher level than a Kyle Hebert and Josh Yaro, without question. If he's able to get back to that quality at all, or some semblance of it pre-injury, the only question for me with Lucas McNaughton is, can he stay healthy?
Yeah, and for like getting the impression that like for this system to work, you need center backs that can move the ball, and like with McNaughton, that's something that he can do. So if you're like looking at the depth chart, if you're thinking that McNaughton is like 4th or 5th on the depth chart, like after him, you go Orozco. Like Orozco can at least move the ball. And then after that, you run out of space for players that can maybe be used in a ball playing role. But yeah, and I think he's good in the air. It seems like that's a common trait of the recent signings of players that can be dangerous on set pieces, be dangerous in the air. And I think that helps.
Another tall center back, 6'2". So he's kind of on the shorter front compared to guys like, I think, Timo Baumgartel and Falou Fall.
Yeah, but if you look at his player radar, like 90% of aerial duels won over the past 3 years. So like definitely has that skill.
Which goes to the fact that Corey Ray clearly has a player profile on these positions. He's clearly targeting like-minded players to fill some of these roles that have consistency. So center backs, that's noteworthy in the roster build to me, is that there is an intentionality behind player profiles being brought in for St. Louis.
You like to see it. You like to see a plan.
You do, as opposed to, well, this guy's run out of short-term loans, so we're going to sign him for the rest of the season. This is a welcome respite from that. The last bit of news, or really, I don't even know how to call this one news, Justin. This one only came across to me Thursday morning, and so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one, but there are changes that we expect to see to Energizer Park policy and signage coming for 2026. Nothing has been announced by the club, but on Blue Sky, the St. Louis City Punks and Riot Girls account, which is a recognized supporter group for St. Louis, made a comment that that group has been told they cannot display their Black Lives Matter flag anymore that they've used since 2023. We expect this to be somewhat of a response, whether it's club or league, club as we know it, but we don't know if this is going to be a league-wide thing too. For St. Louis, I feel it's somewhat of a direct response to the incident that was, I would borderline say, horribly made public. And by horribly made, I mean it reached through every awful zeitgeist you can imagine, with social media firestorm occurring related to a gentleman who was wearing a Make America Great Again hat, being ejected from Energizer Park. There were a lot of background at the time that we covered on that, and we talked about the circumstances surrounding that, but it blew up afterwards to levels that I have not seen anything blow up related to St. Louis City outside of our locality and fandom. And so I was expecting something to break or give going into the season in response to that, because there were threats of lawsuits at the time. This appears to be a response of sorts that we will have hopefully more information later when more details are known. But I have heard that pride flags will still be allowed, as St. Louis does have a pride night plan for this season. But I've also heard that some flags of support that go into the pride flag by trans support may not be allowed. So we will have more information on what changes as we learn more details, but it's an interesting development, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just like specifically what the supporters have to go through to get certain things like approved or whatever. But yeah, it's like clearly a response, and like if you follow MLS and like how they've responded to like ice banners over the past year, like coming through last summer into this year, like it's tough that like it feels like they're trying to like take a neutral stance to something that like doesn't really have a neutral point of view. And like and even last year where crackdowns are already happening, and what does it get? It already gets some like Clay Travis types talking about how they are trying to silence free speech and stuff. So it's like it seems like a lose situation, that when you're trying to like not censor speech necessarily, but when you're trying to like cut all forms of liability, or just trying to like anything that could possibly be seen as something that could like get you in trouble somewhere, like make you the subject of a right-wing hate campaign. It seems like, I don't know. Yeah. It's a little bit depressing, honestly, because I think I would like to see a club that allows people to express themselves in the way that they want to, like even if that does bring negative attention in some way, but it feels like it's not worth alienating community in this way.
Yeah, there's a clear issue in creating alignment with the term common sense, or the term with some of the term political in a lot of ways. People view certain things as political. People view certain things as not political. Identity politics plays into it on all over the place. So more to come on that front. But for now, let's get back into, as they say on Hamilton, let's get back into sports instead of politics. Justin, let's go over the preseason matches that we had. And it started, and it should have stopped with the first match. Let's be honest. There were 2 preseason matches that we got to see for St. Louis City this week. The first one was a 1-0 victory against Austin FC. The second one was a 3-0 loss against the LA Galaxy. But we don't want to talk about that one, and we're not really going to talk about that one much. We need to focus on Austin. Austin with a 1-0 victory was borderline our best 11. We had Roman Berkey in net, Dante Polvera, Timo Baumgartel, and Jaziel Orozco as our center backs. Rafael Santos was our left wing back. Chris Durkin, Daniel Edelman, our central midfielders. Thomas Totland was our right wing back. Marcel Hartl and Song Bin Jong were our 2 attacking midfielders, and Simon Betcher was our starting forward. Is this our best 11 of the players that we have healthy and available right now?
I look at it as that's at least the preferred 11 going into Saturday. I have a couple questions on certain groups. I look at the Mackay and Valum interchange from the second half, and then from Wednesday. And I look at like Rafael Santos and Celio, like where that is depth chart wise. But I think otherwise, yeah, that is the starting 11.
And the caveats of the availability and the health are obvious questions. So,
assuming that Fall is not available, because what we heard, Falou Fall not available, because hearing, and that was what DeMay said like initially when it happened too. And like it seems like everything's still on track, but like he just won't have the time to kind of get prepared. And then we know Mbake is not here yet because his visa has not been approved. So
correct. So we're missing those 2 center backs. Tomas Ostrak, whether he would have pushed or not, he's another leg injury casualty who, by all accounts, has not returned to training yet. So missing Falou, missing Ostrak, missing Mbake because of the visa. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're missing Eddie Leuven right now. That might be a different story come Charlotte on the 21st, but for the away matches in California, Eddie Leuven was not available. And so you had a midfield of Durkin and Edelman as your presumed next up being Durkin alongside Edelman.
Yeah, and I do wonder how much of that was just like getting him rest. And obviously they want to be very careful with him because he did play in the closed doors. At least he was in the photos from that match of the closed door friendly that took place that Wednesday, like whatever the closed door one was before the televised.
And he traveled with the team originally to California. So that's what we know for sure. I know that the team isn't wanting to really make too much of a big deal about this. It obviously is a big deal, but you know what I mean? Spotlighting this, everybody knows what's going on at this point. That's the thing.
He was a very private man. So yeah, you're not exactly much info on that.
Correct. And I think that's how we have to treat this is if we don't see Edu in the lineup, especially on away days, we know why. And we can be frustrated, we can be sad, we will wish him all the best, but that it is what it is on that front at this moment. And so you put in Chris Durkin alongside Daniel Edelman, having made the decision to have Dante Polvera be one of your center backs. The other interesting notes from Austin. So first and foremost, we scored a goal. We scored a goal on one of the two ways that I made note of how we're playing now. Under Yoann Demay, this first game gave us the biggest indication of what kind of style he would be running. Justin, to me, that style is you want to be possessing the ball more. Mm-hmm. You're having more of an intention on playing on the ball, clearly prioritizing possession. But off the ball, you're prioritizing the press. You're almost returning to the level of high press that St. Louis was known for way back when, and you're doing it in a different way. So I mentioned the 3-4-2-1 is what our shape looked like when we were on the ball, with our wing backs being more like wingers, higher than our midfielders up the field often. But in defense, a rest defense off the ball, when the opposition has it building out of their own back, we were shifting more into a modified 3-5-2, or sending an attacking midfielder up parallel with our striker to press with two strikers. What did you see in some of the shapes and formations that we had in tactics from Demay?
Yeah, noticing the different phases of play where that press was activated and where they kind of not sat back, but were buzzing in the midfield, but like not pressing as hard. Like, I think it's not the Red Bull press, but it is the, like, if you followed Pep Guardiola team, like, or Wilfred Nancy, even, like, those teams pressed very hard because they want the ball and they want to regain possession. But then you also get the dirty goal, like you saw, where Edelman wins the ball because he's tracking back, because he's buzzing all over the ball, and then wins it and is able to flick it up to Betcher, who then he puts on a quick shot and it's in. So
that to me was probably the obviously because of the goal, but the way Edelman was approaching that press. So he was disrupting the pass, and then he almost read where the attacker was going to be, and he was able to dispossess him. It wasn't just getting lucky and blocking it and the ball falling to somebody. That was Edelman working hard.
He's battling on that ball.
He's battling in the trenches, and he made it happen. So winning the ball back, getting it quickly up to Betcher, one touch turn, and he shoots and he scores. And for Simon Betcher, converting the XG into G is the biggest question mark, I think, going into this season for him. And man, was it good to see him get that 16-minute goal.
Yeah, if I could plug American Soccer Analysis for a moment, they had a good article in their 2026 previews. This is something that I've talked about on Talking Soccer, my newsletter as well. Cheap plug there. But one of them was looking at Simon Betcher and like his underlying stats last year, as we talked about. Like, if you can get close to that expected goal differential, that expected goals that he generated last year, like, all of a sudden the loss of Klaus isn't really a big deal because Betcher's underlying numbers were better than Klaus's last year. But the conversion, of course, was not the same.
Well, ASA stats, I mentioned last week, Simon Betcher, of all MLS players who played at least 1,200 minutes last season, Betcher was 10th in expected goals per 90. And he's among the leaders in expected goals per shot as well. So he was getting himself in good position. He was creating enough opportunities for himself that he was getting that from others. It's the finishing, pure and simple. And people kind of get frustrated with some of the advanced analytics saying, all of that is just hogwash. If you can't finish, then you can't win games. And yes, I can see that, but I do think it's important to understand, if players are putting themselves and getting into good opportunities, oftentimes these advanced analytics will revert back to the mean, or they'll progress up to the mean. You can't have a season with 8-9 goal differential between goals scored and expected goals again. I just refuse to believe that Simon Betcher is that absolutely bad at clinical finishing, that if he gets himself into these positions again, which it seems like he'll have the opportunity based on the small sample size we've had so far with this best 11, so quote unquote, then we will have more productivity out of Betcher this year than we did last.
This is the debate I've been having, and I was talking to somebody in Blue Sky about this yesterday. But if you look back at previous years, like, he actually overperformed his XG, but in those appearances, he's a sub. He's not starting, and like played more minutes last year than he did in those appearances prior. But if you look at like the past 3 seasons, even across when he was playing abroad, like, he has been an efficient scorer in the past. But is there something with him as a starter that isn't clicking for some reason? So that's the question going into the year. Like, it was last year a regression to what to expect out of him as a starter, or was last year an outlier because in the past he's been a clinical finisher.
And he's going to get his opportunity. By all accounts, we're getting further and further into the transfer window right now. It doesn't close until March 26th, but I know that the front office is actively working to sign a number 9, but the more time we go without it, it's going to be Betcher and McSorley, which McSorley, I think, was another bright spot in these couple games with some really good moments, good touches on the ball in the final third, good off the ball work. But it is going to come down to Betcher and McSorley, it seems. And this might be a good segue into how some of the depth was breaking out. And there were some surprises from this Austin game that carried into the LA Galaxy game that I want to talk about. And it starts with the halftime sub against Austin, Celio Pompeu coming in for Rafael Santos. What do you make of Celio as our presumed second option at left wing back now?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Like I was thinking about this in context of Mackay also, because if you think of them both as left wingers, but Celio's skill set is in 1v1s, like getting out in space and like cutting into the end line and sending in those crosses. Like that is something that he is very good at. Like in 2024, he was one of the best in the league at. So if you can get him in a way where send him out wide, he can create, he can have those 1v1 moments. Like, of course, you then worry about, like, is he a good defensive wing back? But it seems like wing back's role in this system is more as ball progressors, is more as creating those wide chances versus necessarily being relied on as that kind of wide defensive. Like, if you're thinking about a 5-back system of what you saw last year under Olaf Melberg, like, this is not that, because your wing backs are more wingers than they are like defensive left backs, you know.
That has to be clarified. This is not the same 5 in the back, 3 center back look that we had under Olaf Melberg. These wingers are wingers.
Yeah, you see a lot of it with like Pochettino's USMNT. Honestly, when they go 3 in the back, there's a lot. Like I watched Max Arfson trying to get like a good sense of what this would look like. Arfson does similar things where he's pushing into the wing, and then if they turn the ball over high, then one of your center mids is out playing left back essentially to be that defensive cover. So there's a lot of rotation. There's a lot of flexibility. Like it's not the static formation that we sometimes think of it as, where there will be players that are like that player's out of position, but really this is just how they're interchanging in this specific phase of play that I think will take some getting used to if you haven't been paying attention to like a system like this before.
Yeah, the other question as far as depth that seemingly was answered or is starting to be answered is on the right wing back side. The question in the chat, what are they doing with Tots? Thomas Totten's still playing right wing back. He started in this game and he was subbed out at 62 when Brendan McSorley came in for Song Bin Jong and Conrad Wallum came in for Thomas Totland. We talked about this one a week or two ago when we got to hear from Conrad Wallum on his positioning, him alluding to the fact that Johan Demey is not going to be using a traditional right back. He's going to be using wing backs, which we saw in spades. That's very apparent and obvious right now. Conrad Wallum being used on the right side. I don't read Thomas Totland starting to mean that Tots is the preferred choice. I read it as Conrad Wallum was later to camp, and is kind of getting his speed up. And in fact, the second game saw Conrad Wallum coming in and playing more with the starters there towards the end. So when it comes to what are they doing with Totland, I think we're starting to see a right wing back depth chart of Conrad Wallum A, Thomas Totland B.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was wondering because like last year, it seemed like it worked pretty well when Conrad was on the right and Totland was on the left. But I think, looking at how they've been used so far and looking at how Santos and Celio have been used on the left side, like I think that having a proven depth option in Totland behind Wallum, and you could even, if you wanted to use Wallum like further out the pitch or in the midfield or what have you, like Totland, you kind of know he's going to be able to come in the lineup and play well. And I think that's important to have as a depth piece. And I think, like, I do wonder how close that competition is because like Totland looked pretty good in his minutes. So
Totland looked fine. I didn't have a single problem with how Totland was playing. In fact, aside from their spacing and their positioning on the field, I thought Santos and Totland played very well. And this system seems like it's utilizing the strengths of both of them to get into that final third. And we know that Totland has quality on the ball. He has good movement, especially in the attack. He's a strong option at right wing back. That's probably in this system his preferred position.
Yeah,
it could be a true battle between Wallum and Totland.
Yeah, when I talked to him in preseason, the first leg, like he said he was feeling pretty good. And like, I think last year kind of wore on him just with the injury battle and having to like come back and get sidetracked. And then finally feeling like himself at the end of the year when everything was like kind of lost at that point. So like, I'm hoping that there is a competition there and you can see some serious minutes because I think he is hungry for it.
Absolutely. I didn't necessarily like the progression through our midfield a lot. That was one takeaway I had from both games. I thought we were clearly utilizing our wings, and so to me, this isn't going to be a system where you have your back line playing it up to a pivot at the 6, and then they work on sending the ball whichever way they need to, making turns with the ball, progressively carrying it, so to speak. This seems like we're going to be using our wide center backs to get the ball more to our wingers. And then let them hold up play almost. Rafael Santos, I felt like, was acting as a hold up winger in a lot of different ways, where he would receive the ball maybe long, maybe over the top, and he would kind of hold up play for everyone else, send in for some runners.
Yeah, find Hartle in the middle, and then that's kind of the link there. Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is just Leuven not being I'm sure that's part of it, but Leuven being the creative force that he is and not really having another midfielder that can when Durkin steps in, he's not that same guy looking to send passes forward in the same way. So at least with this personnel, that's how it looked.
And that'll be interesting to see how that develops with and without Leuven. See if there's a noted different play style and how we try to progress the ball.
Or if they try to find a depth option that can step in that gives you something similar. Yeah, that's what I wonder also.
If you're going to be having Conrad Wallem play almost exclusively on the right wing back side, which is another facet of this, the fact that these players, it seems like we're trying to find homes for them. It's not Conrad Wallem is potentially our best midfielder, potentially our best right wing back, potentially our best attacking mid option. It's Conrad Wallem is a right wing back, and we're keeping him there. We're letting him be more comfortable, and that speaks to he spoke to that earlier in preseason about trying to find some consistency in positioning, and it seems like, at least through the first couple preseason games, we're getting a little indication that that's going to be the case across the board.
Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of looking at relationships too. I thought it was notable that Mackay was coming in, playing a lot with Totland. And when he's playing with Wallem, he was Wallem was pushing up. Mackay was kind of coming back, playing to receive the ball, opening up a little bit more. So looking at what position wise, what players play together, I think will be important also.
And the so the line changes that occurred at the end of the Austin game, you had Cedric Toyshirt come in, Mackay Joyner come in, Hebert, Yarrow, Lillington all came in, Miguel Perez, Cooper Forcellini. That stayed consistent somewhat in what we saw against the Galaxy as well. These same pairings, these same groupings. They had some differences in who came in at what point, or obviously the line change was different. The second group started the second game, whereas the first group started the first game. But you're seeing Brendan McSorley move up to striker in these ideal kind of, if you're having your A team and your B team. You saw a second grouping where Cedric Toyshirt was your left attacking mid, Mackay Joyner your right attacking mid. That also remained consistent into the second game against the Galaxy. Cooper Forcellini and Miguel Perez as your next two midfield options. This probably starts to speak to the depth that we might see at central midfield based on what Yohan Demay was tossing in there, with Forcellini not having a contract yet. He's a second-round super draft pick, third overall, alongside Miguel Perez. But then Zach Lillington, first-round super draft pick as your right center back, and then Josh Yarrow and Kyle Hebert rounding out your center back core of those healthy. The question in the chat that speaks to what my point is Dante Polvera could play center mid or central defensive mid if no Leuven. I think this also speaks to two things. It speaks to our center back depth currently, where it seems like Dante Polvera is currently a top choice center back of who we have healthy. That is pretty clear to me from these two preseason games. But also the previous point we were talking about of keeping certain players in specific roles, not having movement across the field to cover different positions like we had last season with Wallem playing all over the field, Totland playing the left and the right. At least through two preseason games, the apparent nature of Yohan Demay is to give everybody more their home and let them excel, especially if they're a top choice at one position versus maybe they have more history at another position like Dante Polvera.
Yeah, and I think the Polvera thing's so interesting. Ray specifically pointed out in the press release after the signing that he's going essentially versatile player, can impact both defense and midfield, but then specifically called out that he's playing center back. And I think that's interesting because he did not play much center back at Aberdeen. But as a sporting director who's maybe looking at finding, looking at the data, obviously being data driven and looking at seeing something in his defensive numbers that make you think that he can be an MLS level center back, I think that's an interesting thing to track.
And he played well on the ball. He took space as a wide center back. I think he offers us a dimension at wide center back that we haven't really seen at that level so far. So yes, it's a case to me. Think about it like you're playing EAFC, right? And you have a guy who his primary position might be center mid, and he might be a 78 overall at center mid. And you drop him back to center back, and he dips down to maybe a 76. But your other center backs might be 70, 72. And so a 76 overall center back may be more valuable to you, and seems like it is to us, versus maybe a 78 overall central midfielder when you have Durkin and Edelman there in relief, in addition to Edu Leuven. I think that's the easiest way that I can explain what's happening in my brain, having the EAFC comparison.
And there are cases of players getting to a new situation or a new manager, them like seeing something in the way that they play, thinking that they can play a different position. I think of, not to go women's soccer brain on you, but Terry McCown at Washington Spirit was a striker when she was like in college and drafted the Spirit as a striker. They moved her to center back, and she is now one of the best center backs in the league. So like there are players that are playing out of position, that have a position that they've never played before, that can be elite at that position, but it just takes someone to notice something in their game to point that out. Not saying that Dante Polvera is going to be an elite center back, but just something that can happen.
But it might, and you heard it here first. If it does happen, Justin called it.
You're welcome. Yes.
Well, and it's a center mid, center back conversation too. This isn't unique necessarily. Chris Durkin's done it for us before, and also Justin Hawk is currently doing it again, where he played a center defensive mid, and he was brought back to play center back, and now he looks in preseason like he's playing center defensive mid again.
And the profile of a center defensive mid and a ball playing center back are like somewhat similar in that, especially in a system like this where the center backs are kind of stepping up and like asking to be on the ball a lot. Like there are a lot of commonalities between that.
It's a good point. The second preseason game in and of itself is highly forgettable, primarily because Johan Demey had told us before the Coachella that he's treating the 2 weekend games as more preparation for matches, trying to get into the groove of you play every weekend, get his starters used to that cadence. So we saw it against Austin. That's why we spent most of the time here focusing on the Austin match, because that was the true and only preview I think we're going to see the extended run of our starters. This match against the LA Galaxy midweek, it was rough to see the starting 11 of that. You had Roman Berkey in net, but your back line was Kyle Hebert, Lucas McNaughton, and Josh Yarrow. Celio Pompeu was your left wing back. Thomas Totland was your right wing back. Cooper Forcellini, Miguel Perez, your central midfielders. Palmer Alt, one of the trialists, was in the attacking midfield next to Makai Joyner, who was on the right. And then Brendan McSorley was your striker. So you saw a lot of follow-ups from the first game. And so now you're getting more data that supports a lot of these claims that obviously Brendan McSorley is your second choice striker. Makai Joyner appears to be your second choice right attacking mid. Thomas Totland seems like he's your second choice right wing back. Celio, second choice left wing back. Your backup central midfielders with Leuven out are Forcellini and Perez. And then Hebert, McNaughton, and Yarrow make up that next tier center back group. But also just in general, harkening back to the Lucas McNaughton conversation, it was great to see him on the field and pretty quality as a central center back.
Yeah. And I was looking at this too, like, I think there are players here who might not be in the starting group right now, but I think the competition is closer than to say that it's nailed on. Like, I think Makai and Sangbin as that like right-sided inside forward role, I think that's close, because I think like Makai had some really good moments.
Yes.
And like, I'm not sure like Sangbin outside of like in transition gives you some of the things that Makai does. So like, it'll be interesting to track how that battle goes.
And then on the left mid, so right next to Makai Joyner, you had Palmer Alt start, but Caden Glover came in at 28 minutes for him. And I was celebrating personally seeing Caden Glover on the field for the first time this preseason that we've seen, and back in a city kit on the field for the first time since I want to say 2024. I don't think he appeared for us last season.
Yeah, he did not play in that Aston Villa game either.
Yeah, yes, I specifically remember one of, if not the only one, who did not appear.
Yes.
I want to see more out of Caden Glover. I make a lot of jokes about the fact that he's not appearing, and he seems to have fallen off the face of the earth and struggled to find time with City 2 and 25. But a quality Caden Glover can help this team. I think a part of it also is he's still growing somehow. He's like 18 years old already at this point. He's in his fourth year with City. We signed him when he was 15. And he's grown every single year. This year, included that we've seen.
He was like towering over people in like preseason. Like who? Oh, that's Caden. Okay.
I
He
truly
like
feel
grows
that
3 inches every time I see him. I feel like,
and I truly feel that's part of this story. I'm not using it as an excuse or a crutch on why he hasn't been able to break through more and better, but getting used to your own body and how it's adapting to not just the quality you're playing against, but to itself. That's got to be a factor in it.
I've been thinking about it a lot because like development, it's such an interesting thing of that like it isn't linear, and when you're in a situation like King Glover where you're the first homegrown of a fan base with and like of a city with a lot of homegrown soccer heritage, like there's a lot of pressure to be successful or to make that. And like talking when I've talked to City 2 managers, talking to and even like talking to Hackworth last year, like and talking to Dale Shilley, I think he has internalized some of that pressure. So Hackworth even maybe saw him as more of like a 9-10 hybrid versus like that flat out striker that I think we had kind of thought of him as. So we're trying to find the right position for him, trying to find the right role for him. I had some moments in this where I noticed he had like some good progressive runs with the ball, and like I think things might be starting to click a little bit, but yeah.
I make a lot of jokes about Caden Glover, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've misused our roster around him. And with him, the fact that he has been taking up a supplemental slot and not appearing is a travesty in roster management. He should have taken up the off-roster homegrown. He should have been used in slot 31. All these kinds of things should have taken pressure off of him in the way that they have with Miggy Perez and Tyson Pierce and Makai Joyner even. But I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than be blunt and say that he has been misused on our roster, and it was a failure of roster management under Lutz and Hack in how they have been leaving him on the supplemental as opposed to utilizing those additional slots in his first 2 years, especially when we didn't even utilize those slots. And I think that has played into the story of just not being sure what's going on with him, why he's just sitting there taking up a roster slot.
Yeah, it's tough when you're looking at City 2 last year and you're seeing them not getting a ton of playing time. And yeah, it's easier to see if he's playing and struggling that you can see, okay, maybe something's not clicking, but when you're not even seeing him on the field at all, it's hard to say like what's not working there. But
and in this match, like you said, a 9-10 hybrid, he played the left attacking mid where that does seem like an option for him, but he's also not the second choice option there. If you have Marcel Hartl, Cedric Choyshirt was the one who came in after, just like he came in the first game against Austin. So you have Hartl and Choyshirt seemingly as that left attacking mid 1-2 with Songbin and Joyner as the right attacking mid 1-2. It's going to be interesting to see if A, Palmer Alt finds his way onto the roster, but also B, how Caden Glover can find time with City, knowing that he's got those couple of guys ahead of him.
Yeah, maybe it's as simple as like City 2 is a landing spot for him, that he's in the roster this year, and like by midseason after the summer break, like something different happens. But I'm very interested to see like how they manage him and how they manage Tyson Pierce this year, because those are two players I think you should be wanting, at least especially in Tyson Pierce's case, they should be wanting to move up, but we haven't really seen much out of them in preseason so far.
Yeah, there's a good segue from that topic. So I'm going to wind down our talk on the Galaxy, because the rest of the game, we saw halftime subs, we saw 70-minute subs. It transitioned into the B squad with a couple plug and plays like Caden here and there to the A squad at 70. The 2 goals we allowed at the beginning of the second half, Justin, to me, it's not even worth the breath almost. It were mistakes made on our back line after being pressured. Yarrow, Lillington, Lucas McPartland, the academy goalkeeper, saw time in this one. And yes, it was frustrating to see, but there's no conclusions you can draw on how this will affect us in the regular season, at least right now, because you don't expect Lillington's not signed to a roster slot right now. McPartland is in the academy. He's not going to see time. And Josh Yarrow is at this moment, even with a couple unavailable center backs, he is arguably 5th or 6th on the depth chart at center back.
Yeah, I have frustrations on the Yarrow Lillington situation, like how they got to that point. But yes, it's not something that should have any bearing on the regular season at all. And on McPartland, I think he is going to be a good keeper, but still 18 years old. Like this is his first time training with the first team, like extensively. So like those mistakes are going to happen. It was like a goal kick that he kind of slipped and just lasered right into Yarrow. So like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, a miss hit where he was clearly aiming for the right wing back in that case, and Yarrow's leg was just caught in the crossfire, basically.
That's bad luck. Bad luck.
Yeah, Lillington was kind of eaten alive on one play. And then the 90th minute, Haziel Orozco had a header that just fell to the wrong person with too much space, and Gabriel Peck, and that was the third goal, the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that seemed more like a miscommunication. McCarlan
Yes.
comes out. I think he's trying to play it. Orozco thinks he can head it back, and it just does not. It goes terribly. So
agreed. And the positives in that game against the LA Galaxy, Brendan McSorley, Celio Pompeu, Thomas Totland, Lucas McNaughton, Makai Joyner, the guys who played long and they had multiple opportunities. We saw what could have been a couple goals. Brendan McSorley had a nice little cross. Celio had a good cross to Makai. Not a ton of chances, but you saw flashes to me. The negatives, you talked about it with the Lillington Yarrow issue. Our midfield work, I'm still, if we have to rely on Miguel Perez and a Cooper Forcellini type person in our midfield at any point during the regular season, we are in trouble. And not just because we will be progressing the ball in our wings, but that's just a huge gap that will exist, that they don't have the quality at this moment in time together. Now, Miggy along with Daniel Edelman, I don't know. Miggy with Durkin, I don't know. Miggy with Forcellini, though, I don't want to see it again.
Yeah, I think if I'm thinking about it, it's like a bunch of guys who you'd want to slot in next to Leuven or whoever takes up that ball progressing.
Yeah,
second,
exactly.
Not to call it double pivot, but second midfield role. I think Miggy can probably do the Daniel Edelman role pretty well, especially coming in as a sub, coming in in spot appearances. That's the role that you want to see him in as he kind of makes that jump again. But I think that's where he played best last year, as well as that kind of 6-8 hybrid that got forward sometimes. But he's not the player right now, at least right now, that's going to control possession in that way. And that was the problem with this game, is they just had no one that could take the sting out of the game when they were trying to progress it through the middle.
Right. They didn't abandon what they were trying to do. From a style of play, they were still, you could see the identity was there just like it was in the first game. But the effectiveness, it was not there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're tracking back to try to receive the ball right next to the center back, and you just can't take the pressure off. So
you remember last season when I think it was under Olaf, and Marcel Hartl would come back to play left back essentially because you had nobody to progress the ball from Roman Berkey, and so Hartl legitimately had to come all the way back to do it with Eddie Leuven.
I try not to remember that, but I do remember. Yes.
That's what we need to avoid this year, and I've seen enough from our first choice group that I think we can avoid it. But this is a good pivot into, as we wrap up preseason, we now have what I feel is a very good idea of what our depth chart looks like going into the regular season. So let's take a gander. We have, and the only update I need to make to this chart that I'm showing on the screen is that we have 27 of 30 roster slots used with the McNaughton signing. But our depth chart, for those listening to us, basically looks like this. Roman Berkey and Ben Lunt in net. Our three center backs, and this is partially educated guesses based on the fact that we haven't seen two of these players, but it's Falou Fall, Timo Baumgartel, and Mbake Fall, with Dante Polvera as probably the next man up, or even in place of Mbake Fall. That's probably the one question left to be answered, is it Polvera or Mbake as your third center back alongside Falou and Timo Baumgartel? But you also have Lucas McNaughton, Haziel Orozco, Josh Yarrow, and Kyle Hebert as other center backs. We are up to 8 true center backs on this roster currently, with 27 total on the roster. The left wing back side is Rafael Santos and Celio Pompeu, 1 and 2. The right wing back side, I believe, is Conrad Wallum, Thomas Totland, and Tyson Pierce. Haven't really seen much of Tyson, but you assume he's going to take up one of those off roster slots again this year. At least that's my assumption. But that left wing back and right wing back, I feel pretty confident in saying that's how it's going to break down, with Santos and then Pompeu on the left, Wallum and Totland on the right. In the midfield, Edu Leuven and Daniel Edelman are your 1 and 2. That if Leuven is available and healthy, I think that's your 1 and 2. Chris Durkin is right there, ready to go behind Edu Leuven if and when he's not available. So your midfield of Leuven and Edelman, with Durkin, Ostrak, who is still hurt and still has not returned to training, and then Miguel Perez. And this is only signed players that we're talking about. So a midfield of Leuven and Edelman with Durkin, Perez, and Ostrak, then behind them. Your attacking mids, I think we've seen consistency in positioning here. So I'm labeling Marcel Hartl and Songbin Zhang as our starting attacking midfielders, with Hartl on the left and Songbin on the right, in a rest defense, where we look to press 2 strikers, you have Song Bin stepping up next to our striker. So that's how that looks off the ball. Marcel Hartle on the left, followed by Cedric Toyshirt and then Caden Glover. And then on the right, you have Song Bin Zhang with Makai Joyner behind him. The attacking role, the striker, is Simon Betcher and Brendan McSorley. Do you agree? What questions do you have outstanding on this? Or
that's how I see it. I wonder if Lillington makes the team, and I wonder where they see him as a midfielder or a center back. So I think I like him a lot more as a midfielder. That potentially like helps with some of that depth, like at that position. I also wonder about Tyson Pierce. I think like organizationally, and I think when he's called into the youth national team, they see him as more of a center, like a center mid still. But obviously, like every center mid can play right back, and you just kind of want him playing where he can get playing time. So very interested to track how that looks. But outside of that, no, I think that's exactly how I have it, Matt. So.
And that's one reason why I was so interested in talking about preseason, not just the tactics, not just the style of play, but I think DeMay gave us a really good indication of this kind of depth chart to expect going into the regular season. So that's why I wanted to make sure we call it out. And we'll talk about this next part a lot more next week based on injury availabilities, who we see in training, but the projected starting 11 for match day 1 against Charlotte, I have a similar lineup to that, but because it's a home game, I'm plugging in Edu Leuven. And this is based off of current available players. So we don't have Fall, we don't have Mbake, we don't have Ostrak, and we do have Leuven in my early estimates because it's a home game. And yes, I do think Leuven has played enough and trained enough so far this preseason that he is a candidate for that. But I also would not in the slightest bit be surprised to see Chris Dirk in there because he's seen more time with the first group and with Daniel Edelman. So this might change, and if it does change, it will probably change in that midfield. But I have Roman Berkey in net, Dante Polvera, Timo Baumgartel, and Haziel Orozco as my 3 center backs. Rafael Santos, left wing back, Connor Vollen, right wing back, Leuven and Edelman, central midfielders, Marcel Hartle and Song Bin as my attacking mids, and Simon Betcher as the 9. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's where I have it too, just based on like what we've seen so far. I wonder, like I said, I think I mentioned that earlier, like the Song Bin, Makai conversation, I think is maybe closer than we think it is. And then obviously McSorley and Betcher, I think McSorley's like look good in preseason. So I think it's on match day 1, but a roster that could potentially change over the next few weeks. Yes. But yeah, as far as the back 3, that's how I see it as well. I don't think McNaughton is going to start. I think because I think he is more of that central guy in the back 3 versus kind of flanking. And I think that matters also. It's not necessarily the 3 best center backs, but the 3 of those positions. And I think Orozco gives you something in how he moves the ball that on opening day, as much as he maybe has some liabilities elsewhere, that they're more comfortable with if Mbake is not here yet and if Falou Fall is not ready. So, and
don't forget how many times Orozco played fullback role last year. It was a left back, but it gives you an idea of he profiles more as the ball handling wide center back who can progress the ball a little better. Maybe has more defensive responsibilities out in space like that.
Yesterday, I was making notes of how I enjoyed how he could throw a ball. There were a couple times where they were expecting just like the team to cycle through, and he was like throwing ball essentially. But then, as I made that note, he the header back to the goalkeeper mishap happened. So
right. But that's a good reminder, though, that when we talk about center backs, it's important to take into consideration the role of a central center back versus the wide center backs on the left and the right. You have an obvious one like Falou Fall, who's left-footed, and you're going to slot him as that left center back. Dante Polvera has played the left center back in both games, and so he is your, even though he's right-footed, it gives you a different look than Falou. But a wide center back makes more of you can directly connect that to your role as like a central defensive mid or a fullback in some of those responsibilities that you're asked. Whereas a central center back, that last man back, different defensive responsibilities, different need to play with the ball at your feet. I do think McNaughton, and how we saw him also on Wednesday, because we know Josh Yarrow is capable and often does play the central center back when he's in. In that match, Lucas McNaughton played central center back with Yarrow as a wide center back. So prioritized McNaughton as that deeper center back.
Yeah, and I think that's just his profile works better. If you're looking at like Timo Baumgartel being the central center back, throughout preseason so far. Like McNaughton seems like he kind of fits in as almost a 1-for-1 replacement with maybe a little bit more quickness, but a little more quickness, a little bit less skill on the ball. That's kind of the give and take you get.
That's right. Any other comments or thoughts on this one as we wrap up preseason? Because this is it, Justin. We've come through this far. St. Louis does have one last match in the preseason against DC United this weekend. It is a closed door friendly. If it follows the recent closed door friendly in California, don't expect to hear too much about it. But it will see the presumed starters again. It's a weekend match. It's the 1 week milestone before the regular season starts. So we're going to see this projected starting 11 or a majority of it based on availability feature in that match. So look forward to that in the photos and any of the information that we get from it. But any other comments on preseason or anything else as we wrap up the show?
No, just that I've enjoyed what I've seen from like the change of the system so far. I think that it kind of works well to meld what they've been looking for. And like when Lutz, not to make fun of it, but when Lutz mentioned like the City 2.0 kind of philosophy of wanting to be more comfortable on the ball, I think this is more in line of what that vision should have been of a team that still like presses aggressively, frantic in the press. I know you mentioned it in your kind of commentary of it, Matt, but like Galaxy were trying to play through it probably, but they were even, I thought that lineup was going to get smashed yesterday, and they like pressed really well and kept things in the first half at least pretty exciting. So like, I'm looking forward to the chances that press potentially creates. And then I think they've gotten better on set pieces as well. So some places that you can be a little more optimistic about than I was maybe a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely. I agree. I saw enough positives that I think we're going to hang in there. We're not going to get blown out. We have some questions on health and availability, but we'll see where we are a week from now in who's able and healthy enough, because the team returns this next week. We have a lot of activities coming up. So as we wrap up this preseason look, I want to do a couple quick bits of housekeeping. The next week we'll have at least 2 different flyovers. We expect the players to be available for some preseason interviews that I think Justin and I will both be at. So check out Justin's coverage on Talkin' Soccer. Justin, how can folks find Talkin' Soccer?
Yeah, Talkin' Soccer, just go to talkinsoccer.com. I have a ghost site now. So that is where I publish all my newsletters. My goal this year is to do just the weekly City SC, more in-depth coverage outside of my St. Louis Mag stuff, and then an MLS and an NWSL kind of broader piece. So if you like to know things outside of St. Louis City as well, that's where you can find me.
And if you didn't already get a hint this preseason, if you're a regular viewer or listener to Flyover Footy, you could probably expect Justin to be, dare I say, a regular contributor to Flyover Footy for 2026.
Yes, happy to stop by. I have fun, Matt. I think we get into some good conversations.
100% agree.
2 times in a row that we didn't have technical difficulties, so I think we're in the clear now.
I like it. It's got to be a good omen for the season if there's anything.
I think so.
But in addition to early week content, so we'll hopefully have interviews for players that are on the Flyover feed. Watch for that on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when that's available for us. We will also have our live show at Blue Jay Brewing next Thursday at 7 p.m. Check out our socials, Instagram and X and everything, and Blue Sky for more details on that. But 7 p.m. next Thursday, we will be previewing Charlotte. We will be looking at our team and how we stand. So getting you all ready for match day 1 and getting you ready for the start of the season. That's going to be an absolute fun event. If you can't make it, we're still planning on live streaming it. So Thursday night, we'll still have the live stream at 7, and then obviously available next day on all podcasts. So preseason is wrapped from what we can see, wrapping this weekend officially. Had fun kind of projecting, previewing, and now digesting what we've had to see. So looking forward to next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Flyover Footy. Thanks to Justin for joining me, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks for having me. See you, everybody.
All right, usually when I click end stream at this point, it just ends. So I do want to say thanks for everybody tuning in on a lunchtime on Thursday. Enjoy your Thursday night. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we see a lot of you either at the City Live event next week or at Blue Jay. And thanks as always for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Justin, talk to you later.
Yeah, talk to you later.